Do you have questions about your health? Do you need to find out what's keeping you from feeling your absolute best? If so, your intuition has guided you to the right place. I am Dr. Charlize, and welcome to the Art of Healing podcast community. In this podcast, we explore all topics in health and wellness, from Reiki to functional medicine, energy medicine, chakras, and meditation. Join me every week for fresh new episodes that highlight healers, various healing modalities, and use this as your opportunity to find what healing works best for you. If you want to learn more about me, simply Google at Dr. Charlize. Enjoy. So today we're going to cover the 7 energy centers or chakras, and then we're going to explore the major hormones that are associated with those, and then we're going to experience those for ourselves. So for the purposes of our discussion, there's 7 chakras, but we're going to start with the first and the second combined because there's much overlap. Much of the research I've done over the years crosses both of these together. They are 2 distinct energy centers. However, just for the purposes of our discussion, we will explore and discuss both of them together. So this includes the root chakra and then the sacral chakra. And both of these graphics show you roughly their location. But again, we don't have a physical organ, so we wouldn't be able to do an MRI and see our root chakra. We could do an MRI and see our lumbar spine, which is associated with the root chakra. So the root chakra, which is located deep in the body, in the base of the spine, likely somewhere near the tailbone. And emotionally, it is associated with our ability to trust, our feeling in the here and now, our feeling centered and whole. The sacral chakra is also located deep in the body, but it's higher. So it's somewhere in the pelvic region and probably in front of the spine and probably hovering somewhere around the bladder. And in women, hovering around where the uterus and ovaries are, both again deep in the body. And same thing, we wouldn't be able to see it on any kind of imaging. We can just sense it there. So this picture, just as a reminder of what's in the pelvic region for women. So of course, you've got the bladder there, uterus and ovaries, if they're still there. For women that have had hysterectomies, those would not be there, or part of those would be missing. It's important to note that in subtle energy or energy medicine, having a hysterectomy does not change the sacral chakra, has absolutely no change on this part of the body. And the glands that we're concerned with primarily would be the ovaries in women. And in men, although the primary organs that we'd be concerned with are external, so of course that'd be the testicles, in terms of energy medicine, it's still the same. So although in men, we wouldn't have these internal organs producing hormones, as far as working with that energy, it's actually still the same. Many schools of thoughts locate the testicles in the root chakra, some in the sacral chakra. So for our discussion, that's why we put them both together. So just a reminder that for both genders, that's kind of what we're referencing. So the hormones that are produced from the first and second chakra primarily are estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So these are hormones that are called the sex hormones. That's a really simplified way to describe them because these hormones have much, much, much bigger jobs. But most of the time in clinical medicine, we say, oh, these are just your sex hormones. And these are also the hormones that a lot of people are speaking of when they say, oh, I need my hormones checked. I don't feel good. I feel tired. Don't feel right. So, in terms of those hormones, and when they're not optimal, when they're not what we need, what do we experience? So, in the root chakra, if things aren't right, if they don't feel okay, the symptoms that you might feel might be in the legs, could be muscle cramps in the legs, along with restless leg, maybe just feeling tired. I put mania in trouble with focusing, and that feeling is often what's called feeling ungrounded. You just don't feel like you're centered. Those might be even clinical mania or clinical trouble focusing is ADD or ADHD. If your energy flow isn't great in your root chakra, you might actually have inflammation, and not just in the root chakra. So, not just inflammation that'd be in the lower back or inflammation from arthritis in the hips or the knees. This would be inflammation all over the body. So, it might show up in the skin, in all the joints. And then, of course, feeling anxious or feeling depressed. And in the sacral chakra, if the energy flow isn't great there, what you might experience. When I created these lists, I actually wanted them to be a little bit jumbled because I wanted you to get the sense of when we are living through this, this is what you feel. So it could be experiencing trouble having a child or trouble with the reproductive system. It could be experiencing a low libido or having difficulty during sex. It could be having PMS symptoms. It could be that you're having trouble with being creative. You need to write a memo or write a manual and you're having writer's block, or you're having trouble with your bladder, with pain or dysfunction in the bladder, or having to urinate, feeling you need to urinate even when you don't even need to go. It could even extend all the way to digestive issues with having trouble with elimination, or having difficulty relating in relationships, difficulty in intimate relationships or with friends or family. So when we experience these blockages, it's completely not just physical, it's a whole lived experience all throughout all of those symptoms. So we're going to get ready to sense our own root and sacral chakras. And these mantras are something that you can recite to yourself because we'll just be doing this for a few minutes. If you want to make notes, feel free to. If it's the root chakra that you want to tap into more, I can't grow from an unsteady foundation. Or if it's the sacral chakra, it is, and sorry, I can't see that whole mantra from my view, but feel free to have a look, bring those into your being, write them down if you need to. So now is our first of these experiences. So, wherever you are, seated in any way that you can get comfortable, if you were doing something, if you could find just a few minutes to get quiet. You can also put your hands on either side on your hips. If you feel fairly flexible and you feel that you can reach your lower back, you can place your hands on your lower back. You can also put one hand on your pelvis and then one on your back. So, however you want to take that option, the effect will be about the same, but just getting your hands somewhere on that lower body. And for the next few minutes, we're just going to sense our root and our sacral chakra, and we're just going to try to sense into where we are with our hormones there. So, you might get some insight. So you can simply take a deep breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. And as you breathe, you might want to experiment and see if your hands register or move, if your breath is deep enough that it creates movement in your pelvis. So for a few minutes, if you want to breathe in to your base, to your sacral chakra. You may feel energy flow down your legs. And when we work with these lower chakras, now you might start to feel any harried or jumbled thoughts and energy begin to slow down. So, as we complete that experience, if your eyes were closed, might be a good idea to go ahead and open your eyes. And the nice thing is, as we journey through this, we'll have time to return to that base, to that root. It's a great place to work with the rest of the energy centers. And really, it's fairly mandatory when we get to the higher chakras that we get back in touch with that base. All right. So the first and the second, we just experienced the solar plexus chakra. So this is the chakra that is located in the belly. It's also called Manipura in the traditional sense. And its location is in a really important place in our bodies. So it's in the upper abdomen, it's around where our stomach is. The solar plexus chakra is a location of the pancreas. And in terms of our hormonal health, this is a gland that I feel often gets overlooked by most of us. Because again, when most people say, I would like to have my hormones checked, they're thinking of just their estrogen, just their progesterone, maybe their testosterone, maybe their cortisone. I think they're probably thinking of that, but they often forget that one of the major producers of any hormone in the body is the pancreas. So the pancreas is an organ that sits very near the stomach. It's wrapped around by the small intestines. And the pancreas produces hormones insulin and glucagon. These are very important hormones as far as our metabolism and our energy. The pancreas has other roles as far as digestion. For that role, it doesn't produce hormones. It does produce enzymes and other things that help us break down and digest our food. But in terms of the energy and wanting to have something flowing, working well, we can see how if our pancreas doesn't get enough energy from us, attention from us, or we're blocking it, how that would create much bigger problems. And then the other major glands in this region are the adrenal glands, which sit right on top of the kidneys. They're not actually very big. This graphic helps us to see their location, but in real life, they're actually a lot smaller than that. And the adrenal glands are comprised of layers. And in terms of hormonal health, each layer makes a different type of hormone. So the solar plexus chakra is considered our source of personal power It's where we have our self esteem. It's where we feel our best. And it's also a lot of where we have our thinking. So we think clearly when the solar plexus chakra is nice and strong. So, if for some reason we don't have good energy flow in the solar plexus chakra, and why that might happen is another big discussion on how you could get blocked here from life experiences, history of neglect, abuse. But if your energy flow is not good here, things that you might notice are just not feeling very confident, not feeling motivated. The digestive issues, of course, would be trouble with digesting your food, feeling that when you eat, you don't break down your food, or even seeing evidence of it, eating food that passes through your system undigested, seeing whole food in your stool, basically. And then the biggest blockage is, to me, the most dangerous. And we know that there's evidence of this worldwide, is when our solar plexus doesn't have good energy flow. The pancreas has been working too hard for years and years, leading to diabetes, one of the most common diseases worldwide and one of the most devastating. I put there metabolic disorders because diabetes is a form of a metabolic disorder. So your body's inability to manage glucose as a form of energy. So the hormones in the solar plexus chakra are insulin and glucagon, and those come from the pancreas. So again, that's one that I feel always deserves much more attention. It is actually possible to check those levels. Insulin is definitely possible to check. And then aldosterone, which is one that gets overlooked and is an important cause of high blood pressure in many individuals, producing the adrenal glands, and improper production of aldosterone, making too much of it, can cause high blood pressure and leading to someone needing 3, 4, 5, 6 blood pressure medications. That's actually a big point of research recently, that a lot of people are being treated incorrectly for their blood pressure because their aldosterone levels are too high. Cortisol and cortisone coming from the adrenal glands. HEA, which is an important building block, and it's the building block of our hormones from the sacral chakra, the estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. You need to have good levels of DHEA in order to produce those others. So if that's not optimized, your downward production of those other hormones isn't very good. And then lastly, one that's often, called a vitamin, which is actually a hormone, is vitamin D, which affects our bone health. So all of this coming from the solar plexus chakra. So we're going to go ahead and start our solar plexus chakra experience. So here is the mantra that you can have to review if you want to jot down or recite to yourself. So so now we're going to experience our own solar plexus chakra. So with this one, if you are seated in a place you can perform this, you'll just be placing your hands on your abdomen. So you can put your hands above your belly button, but beneath your chest. And you'll want to keep your fingers pretty close together. So as you settle into this experience, you can let your eyes close, and keeping your attention on where your hands meet your belly. And for the next few minutes, just make observations. So, not trying to change or move anything, just observe if you feel heat. Do you feel cold? Do you feel buzzing? Do you feel hunger? Do you feel fullness? So let's just take a few minutes to see what we sense in our solar plexus. So if you want to take one more big breath, just make a final note of anything you sensed in this area. Then it can feel good to take your hands together and just rub them together. And take a few big breaths. If your eyes were closed, you can go ahead and open those. And on we go. So next is the heart chakra. So if you all saw the workbook, there was a questionnaire and it's concerning adverse childhood experiences. And I thought this was a good point. It's a big topic, but when we're discussing the heart chakra and we're discussing hormones, what our bodies are doing, that's really hard not to look at what childhood experiences do. So, heart chakra, located in the chest. So, it's in the center of the chest. We call it the heart chakra, but it's not over directly the heart. It's actually beneath the breastbone, deep within the chest. So, as far as the subtle energy location, probably closer to where the esophagus may be in the chest. And in terms of the structures that are there, of course, our heart's there, our lungs there, but for the purposes of our discussion today, it's going to be the thymus gland that's located in the chest. And the thymus gland, mainly it's producing something called thymosin. And thymosin's job is actually to, a rough definition is to train the immune system as far as when to attack and when not to. So thymosin's produced just in the thymus gland, and it's training the T cells to know when a pathogen or something that's very small is actually a threat and when it's not. When the thymosin is not produced correctly, those T cells can become confused and begin to learn to attack the wrong things. And when this happens, that's what leads to autoimmune diseases, which is an extremely long list of disorders from psoriasis to lupus to alopecia to Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. Also produced in the heart chakra is something called BNP. It is a hormone that the heart will produce if the heart senses that there's too much fluid or is having trouble beating. The job of BNP is to tell the kidneys to release extra water. For the most part, most of us won't probably experience a disruption in our BNP unless we have severe heart issues. So, if we become blocked in the heart chakra, what is it that we might experience? Of course, our heart chakra in our chest, we could have problems in the lungs from asthma to COPD or autoimmune diseases of the lungs, such as pulmonary hypertension. We could have diseases of the heart, so blocked arteries, coronary artery disease is one, or heart failure. We might have autoimmune disorders that could impact the entire body. And then emotionally, we would have trouble with self compassion. So if we can't have compassion for ourselves, then can we have compassion for others? And we might be able to, but it's probably going to be a struggle. And then also the shoulders. If we're having trouble with our heart chakra, we might experience shoulder pain all the way to shoulder arthritis. And when the heart chakra has been blocked for a long time in the heart, a big blockage, major depression, long standing, the fatiguing kind of major depression, not just a depressed mood, but the severe depression. And then overall feeling unloved. The heart chakra's role is it bridges our lower chakras that are mostly sensory, very personal, and our lower chakras are often, what we don't share with the world with the upper chakras of communication, insight, some of those things. And our heart is actually the bridge between all of that. So here is the mantra that goes with the heart chakra. I did have additional resources concerning the heart chakra, which I think I'll share those towards the end. Sometime back, I created a YouTube program with a good friend of mine called the Vibrational Healing Program. That is a good way to really center in and hone in on the heart chakra, but I'll share that towards the end. So this mantra is one that you can write down, read. With the mantras, as we're doing these, you can recite them to yourself just silently. You don't have to say them out loud. And then we will experience our hearts. So you can place one hand directly on your breastbone or your heart, and then the other on top of it, whichever it just comes to you. So it can be right hand first or left hand first. And then if you're seated, this is a good time to just check your posture and just see if your legs and your pelvis feel good and grounded. And alternatively, depending on what kind of day you've had, if you'd like to stand up for this one, this would be a perfectly good time to stand up and just ground your feet, get some good energy into your legs. And then as we settle into this experience, you can let your eyes close and you'll inhale and see if you can inhale from your root, your sacral chakra, the solar plexus, and then feel your chest expand. And then exhale. And again, inhaling basically from the bottom, inhaling from your back, your sacrum, your belly, then your chest expands. And exhale. The heart chakra is considered to be one of the most or the most important energy center. And of all of our chakras, this is the one that forms first when we're babies, when we're embryos. So as you settle into this, take your attention to the hand closest to your chest and simply observe. You might feel your own heart beating. You may sense your chest expand with each inhale and contract with each exhale. And you may sense your emotional world. So you may sense love or gratitude, or you may sense a sadness or a loss, maybe something that you've forgotten. And in this next few minutes, just sit with it. Don't change it. Just feel it. And if in this space it's a strong feeling, that's okay. I'm actually with you all, and I'm channeling a little energy as we do this. So if there's a strong sense of something, it's okay in this next few minutes to let it go. Beyond the physical, your heart is a major energy center. So now you can take your attention to the space around your body, the air around your body, and between your hands and the sphere around your body. This is actually your heart chakra. And for the last minute, you can even play with expanding that bubble. So you might sense it expanding and growing. And yourself, you may feel a sense of warmth or love. So we can close by rubbing our hands together and opening the eyes. And before we move on to the throat chakra, so that ACE questionnaire that's in the booklet, I just want to point out, if you complete that, and essentially if you find out that you had a score, really any score, but if your score was higher than you intended, the thing that I want to point out to you is that association with autoimmune issues and issues with blockages in the heart. That's what I'd like you to know. So next, we'll go on to the throat chakra. So the throat chakra, which of course is located in the throat, in the neck, and the gland that is associated with the throat chakra, the glands, are the thyroid gland. So this graphic lights up very nicely what the thyroid gland looks like. It has a beautiful butterfly shape, and it sits right over where we speak, our vocal cords, and of course our breathing. It's where our air comes into our lungs through our neck. And then another gland that is overlooked way too much, which are called the parathyroid glands. This is a small set of glands. There can be 4 or 5 of them that are embedded within the thyroid gland. And the parathyroids have a role in our body as far as maintaining calcium levels and maintaining our bone health. And I feel is one that's frequently overlooked, because when the parathyroid hormone's abnormal, it can cause a lot of symptoms that go without explanation. So, in terms of the thyroid hormones, the real thyroid hormones are T3 and T4. Now, when we're getting our blood work done, or we're getting an annual visit, or if we're getting ready for our visit with the functional medicine doctor, the TSH often gets put into the thyroid panel. But the TSH is not from the thyroid. It comes from a different part of the body, which we will cover next. The T3 and T4 are the actual hormones produced by the thyroid gland. The T3 is the one that actually does the work. So the T3 is what gets into circulation, and it's the hormone that's the active role. T3 is sort of a driver or a jet fuel to our bodies. So it governs metabolism, body temperature, governs how quickly nerves can talk to each other. That's T3's role. And then T4 is the storage form. It does have some weak activity within the body, but its primary role is to remain in storage and then be converted to T3 for later use. Then the parathyroid hormone, which is really very much overlooked, and abnormalities in the parathyroid hormone, which is the most common, is making too much, can cause a drastic loss in bone density. Having excessive parathyroid hormone can also cause stones to form. So someone who's had more than one episode of kidney stones really needs their parathyroid hormone checked. These are the hormones that come from the throat chakra. So the throat chakra is associated with speaking our truth and expressing ourselves. It's our center of communication. It's our center of how we show up in the world, our source of personal strength, and some consider it a source of willpower. Yes, I think. So again, if the throat chakra is not open, or the energy is not flowing very well, it might show up just as pain in the neck or the jaw. Neck pain, jaw pain are actually the source of tension headaches. So that can cause a headache, but that pain's actually coming from the neck. Trouble with swallowing. The thyroid diseases that most of us are familiar with, having a thyroid that's not working well, it's overactive or underactive. And then emotionally, having trouble communicating, having trouble getting our ideas out there, not being able to speak up for ourselves, could be potentially how that shows up. So now we'll do our throat chakra experience. So this is where we speak our truth. And for this exercise, you'll place your hands anywhere on your neck or throat that is comfortable. If you can, one or both hands either directly on the front of your neck or even on the side, or if you're comfortable, even placing one hand on the back and one on the front. And you'll want to keep the pressure light. And just as we did before, if you feel comfortable, you can let your eyes close. And again, you will inhale from your root and your sacral chakra through your solar plexus, your chest, which now probably feels open, and you can audibly exhale. So from here, take your attention to where your hands have made contact with your neck or throat, and just sense what that feels like, simply making note of what you sense. Is it buzzing, warmth? Maybe you don't feel anything, which is fine. But for the next few minutes, keeping your hands where they are and simply big inhale through the entire body. And then if you are comfortable, exhaling audibly where you can hear it. So if you'd like to let your eyes open, and you can bring your hands together in front of you, rub them together gently. You can also keep your hands together and take one more big inhale and exhale through the mouth. So I have a question about tension headaches, which it sounds a little weird, but tension headaches typically arise from muscle tension in the muscles of the neck. Most all the major muscle groups in the neck make a connection with the scalp. And it is from there that tension headaches actually occur. From an energy medicine perspective, we would see tension headaches as coming from a blockage in the throat chakra. So it's weird because we always think of tension headaches as in the head naturally, because typically we're anxious, thoughts in the head, and that's where the tension comes from. But it's actually from the muscles. There's one called the sternocleidomastoid and then all of the muscles in the back of the neck remaining tense. And this little exercise we did is actually a good practice if you suffer from tension headaches, to just do that during the day, just to engage with your own muscles and help you relax. All right, on we go. So the third eye is located in the head, and it is somewhere between the ears, but at the level of the eyebrow. So that location puts that subtle energy center into what's called the master gland. So here's some anatomy of the brain. And the gland that we are going to be discussing now is called the pituitary gland. So here's the label for it here. And of all these structures in the brain, it's actually remarkably small. So it sits deep, deep within the brain. It is something that can be imaged. We can get pictures of the pituitary gland. And it's roughly thought of where our third eye chakra exists, more than likely. But again, we can't probably see the chakra, but we can see the pituitary gland. And this is where it gets pretty busy, because the pituitary gland, as you heard me say, is the master gland. So the pituitary gland makes a long list of hormones. The hormones control many of the functions of the body, including breast health, the functioning of the ovaries, the functioning of the testes. The pituitary gland controls the functioning of the thyroid, even has control over the production of pigment, the growth when we're younger, before we have puberty, our ability to grow tall. So the pituitary gland is the master gland, and it, to some extent, controls pretty much every other gland in the body. So the third eye chakra is the chakra that many people are seeking to open when they start a spiritual journey, or they start meditation, or they start yoga. And kind of interesting that that's the one that we target, that's associated with so many functions. It controls so much. So it's kind of a great place to be targeting, because by balancing this, you can balance the functioning throughout your body. So here's a list of some of the hormones that pituitary gland makes. It's not the entire list, but this reminds us that some of those, including the LH and the FSH, control the production of the sex hormones that we mentioned earlier in the talk, such as the estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. And then the thyroid hormone, the TSH, it's not produced in the thyroid, it's produced in the pituitary gland. So the production of TSH depends on the pituitary gland's response to what's going on in the body, the metabolic needs of the body. If the pituitary gland senses that more thyroid hormone is needed, it raises the TSH, and that's what causes increased production of thyroid hormone. Also, growth hormone, our natural source of pain relievers of opioids, and then the melanocyte stimulating hormone, which is our production of pigment. So if we have blockages in the third eye, how does that show up? So really, it can show up with just about anything that's uncomfortable or unpleasant. But a big summary would be in hormone imbalances throughout the body. To some extent, probably relates to the third eye, not flowing well, not having open energy. Metabolic disorders, particularly if the pituitary gland's having issues, it will change how the adrenal glands work, and will change how the pancreas works, so that the metabolism doesn't work well. So we may have unwanted weight gain, or not be able to gain weight, burn energy too quickly or not quickly enough. If the pituitary gland has a certain kind of damage, it could actually raise our chances of having autoimmune disease, because the pituitary gland's not talking well with the adrenal glands. So the adrenal glands may fail to make cortisol and cortisone when they're needed, which can lead to autoimmune disease indirectly. And then what our experience of a third eye blockage could be, really just not knowing the things we could know. knowing that maybe our intuition's not there. Also, insomnia, and I forgot to put this on here, but migraine headaches. So, if our energy doesn't flow well, this is where our migraines could be coming from. So, here is the mantra for the third eye experience. So, I'm open to exploring what cannot be seen. And for this experience, now you'll just be able to put your hands wherever's comfortable. So you can leave your hands just in your lap, or if your intuition's calling you to put your hands on other parts of your body, feel free. If you'd like to experience your hands on your belly again or hands on your chest, you can also do one hand on the chest and one hand on the belly. And then, if possible, I would go ahead and close your eyes for this experience and inhale through all those energy centers. So, inhale from the feet, the root, the sacral, solar plexus, and the chest into the throat, and a big exhale. Big inhale through the entire body, through your root, through your sacrum, your belly, your chest expands, your throat, and big exhale. So now you'll bring your attention to the space between your brows and simply keeping your attention there as you inhale and you exhale. And just as you did before, just notice what you feel. No need to alter or change. Just noticing the space between the brow, and we'll stay there for the next few minutes. So, if you'd like to take one more big inhale through your entire body, from the root to your throat to your head, and exhale, feel free to open your eyes. You might need to rub your palms together or even just bring your hands to your heart. And we will move on to the last of the major energy centers, which is the crown chakra. So, this is an energy center that isn't located in the body, although we will be referencing physical structures in the body. It's actually located above the head. Some authors put this energy center 6 inches above the head. Some say it's all the way to a foot above the head. And again, referencing that anatomy, the gland that's associated with this area, not the pituitary gland, but we associate what's called the hypothalamus, which is above the pituitary gland. And then one gland that's higher than that, it might not be marked on here, which is called the pineal gland. So this graphic here just shows us again the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus, of which in real life and gross anatomy, by the way, this is almost invisible. It doesn't look any different from the rest of the structures around it, although it's hormonally very active. And then finally, the pineal gland, which is a very small gland deep within the brain and has connections to our eyes through the optic nerves. So the pineal gland is where we produce our melatonin. And the hypothalamus actually makes a long list of hormones. I did not think listing those would be particularly helpful to us, but I did want to point out that it actually controls the pituitary gland, which then controls the rest of the glands through a few of these hormones, including the thyrotropin releasing hormone, which controls the production of thyroid indirectly, and then the corticotropin releasing hormone, which controls the production of cortisol indirectly. But the hypothalamus actually makes a long list of hormones. And then our melatonin, which most of us are familiar with, helps us become sleepy at night. We actually make melatonin all day long. It's just that we make it in surges the later in the day for us. And then with a big enough surge, we finally fall asleep. So the crown chakra is our connection to the above, our connection to the mysteries, the things that are greater than us, our spiritual connection to our God, our just our higher connection. So that's where it's thought that we connect ourselves. And if the crown chakra is not very open, what we might sense or we might feel, just feeling disconnected, not having intuition, definitely sleep troubles. It could be insomnia, it could be sleeping too much, many forms of headache, including migraine headaches, tension headaches, even other headaches like cluster headaches. If the energy is blocked in the crown chakra, that may be how it manifests. A sense of anxiety. If our crown chakra is blocked, that's when we can experience what's called a dark night of the soul. The term actually originates from, I believe, the Catholic Church, and I can't remember the actual source of it, but the dark night of the soul, you could also call rock bottom. That's basically if life is crashing down on every front, that could be a dark night of the soul. And that's where a lot of people come to when they start to look for knowledge such as this or to look deeper than traditional medicine. And that's basically everything's hitting all at once. That's the dark night of the soul. Towards the end, I'll give you a link. I have an article on the dark night of the soul and what that could look like. Very painful period of time. And is also a time when we grow immensely, painfully, but we grow. So here is the mantra for the crown chakra. And for this one, just like with our last one, you'll relax your body, your hands, you can place them wherever you feel guided. So if you want to put your hands somewhere on your body, or even if you want to place one or both hands on the top of your head. And again, we will inhale through the entire body. So inhale from the root all the way to your head and exhale. Inhale from the root all the way up, chest expands, throat is open. And with your eyes closed, just bring your attention to the top of your head, your crown. And just as we did before, just sense, notice, no need to change. See if you feel tingling, warmth, coolness, air. So with a final big inhale and exhale, when you feel ready, you can let your eyes open, coming back. Thank you so much for joining during this episode of the Art of Healing podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review. Also, you can check your show notes to find out how to get a copy of this and future episodes emailed directly to your inbox, available to listen to anytime. Finally, if you have questions or wish to connect to me, check your show notes to find out how we can get connected and find out how I can be of service to you.